I was cleaning out the bed of my old Ford on a Saturday when it clicked that I'd spent 5 years being watched by someone who swore she never wanted to hear from me again. There were leaves stuck under the toolbox and a grocery cart while I somehow drove home last winter. The morning smelled like gasoline and neighbors frying bacon. I had the game on the radio because I like background chatter. That's when the message pinged. Innocent little bubble from a familiar stranger, and a phrase inside it snapped the whole story into focus like a lens. Before we get there, let me wind back to the start, because the start is why you'll care about the end. And if you're thinking, okay, boring small-town heartbreak, trust me, the good part is how ordinary it was. Ordinary like a Tuesday, and ordinary like a long, slow, weird 5-year blink. We met in line at a coffee place in Dayton. I was 30, working at a warehouse that shipped HVAC parts, and trying to convince my supervisor I was management material. Her name was Allison, was a nurse with quick hands and quick opinions. She ordered a large iced coffee in January, which should have told me everything. We bumped into each other again at church bingo night a week later, then again at the laundromat because her dryer had eaten one sock from every pair she owned. We did the usual, tacos, walks along the river, late movies on my couch with the volume turned low so my upstairs neighbor wouldn't bang the ceiling with a broom. Nothing grand. It was easy and funny and felt like the kind of thing your aunt nods approvingly at over potato salad. 9 months in, she said, "I like us because we're not a mess." I said something charming like, "Yeah, low maintenance is my brand." We split a bag of kettle chips and watched the weather roll in over the parking lot. That's the memory that keeps coming back to bite me. Us watching clouds like old married people, deciding if we should bring the patio chairs inside. 3 weeks later, she called me while I was under my truck changing the oil. "I can't do this," she said. I rolled my shoulder against the cold concrete. "Do what?" "The oil?" "I could do the oil." "No, us," she said. "I can't do us." I slid out, wiped my hands on a rag, and sat up. "Okay, did I miss a memo?" "It's not a fight," she said. "It's a mismatch. And I don't want to talk about it, because then we'll argue, and then you'll try to fix it, and then we'll patch it for a month, and then I'll be back here again. I'm ending it now." She paused. "I know you're going to want to call me. I'm blocking you. That makes it easier." "For me? Blocking me?" I said. "Like digitally? Like I'm a spam number with a miracle weight loss solution." "Not just the number. Everything," she said. "I'm sorry, Mark." Then she hung up. 30 seconds later, my phone made that empty little noise it makes when you text someone who's turned into a brick wall. Green bubble, not delivered. I tried Instagram. No dice. Facebook. Gone. Email bounced back like I'd misspelled her name, which I hadn't. She went full submarine in under 5 minutes. I'm not dramatic. Ask anyone. Well, ask my sister. She'll give you a qualified, usually. I did not go running across town. I did not serenade her window. I breathed into the rag. I told myself. She said it's easier for her. You like it easier too. Let it be. I threw the rag into the sink, washed the oil off my knuckles, and finished with the truck so I could still make it to the hardware store before they closed. The guy at the counter said, "How you doing?" And I said, "Living the dream." Then I bought a pack of bungee cords and pretended the ache behind my eyes was just a headache from lying on cement. Here's my quick aside to you. Since we're just getting warmed up, I thought the hard part was over. A clean break, mess-free, right? That was the story I sold myself. If you stick with me, you'll see how naive that sounds. I wasn't even in the first inning. The first month after, I walked a lot. I started taking the long way home, zigzagging past her apartment, just to not look at it, if that makes sense. You avoid the exact block, but somehow you put your feet near anyway. My buddy Kyle tried to pull me out. He said, "Come shoot pool." I said, "I don't shoot pool. I roll hope." He squinted. "That's the saddest thing I've heard this week. We played, we lost." He said, "Seriously, you okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Blocked, boxed, shipped, delivered." And I smiled, which for me is like putting duct tape over a leak. 2 months later, Instagram told me a new follower had arrived. Username looked like a license plate. Daydream93077. No post, no profile pic, no bio. Following 8 people, 2 of which were the Dayton Dragons and a barbecue joint. I accepted because I'd public anyway, and because it felt like one more drop in the big bucket of internet nothing. Then I started noticing. Every time I posted a photo, my nephew at T-ball, my attempt at ribs on the grill, my truck after a wash, Daydream 93077 liked it within 10 minutes. Always there. No comments at first. Just the silent I saw it. It didn't creep me out. If anything, it was like having one enthusiastic stranger in the bleachers. I told myself it was a bot. Then I told myself bots don't show up to watch your nephew's T-ball live on your story. Bots don't know to ask, which dry rub did you end up liking? Looks good. That was the first comment I remember. No punctuation crimes. Polite, like a neighbor leaning over the backyard fence. I wrote back, homemade. Too much paprika. Learning curve. They sent a smile emoji. That was it. No conversation. I forgot about it by the time I fell asleep on the couch with SportsCenter reruns playing to nobody. Some weeks, I posted nothing. They watched my archived stories when I reshared them. They hit every little heart. They checked in without checking in. I go live from my driveway just to fix a squeaky hinge on the toolbox and shoot the breeze, and Daydream would pop up. I didn't know who was behind it, and I didn't care. After a while, you accept the internet as a giant waiting room and figure everybody's killing time. The same pattern started on Facebook. Friend request from Dana D. Default gray silhouette. Mutual friends. 2 coworkers and my gym. I clicked accept. Their behavior matched. The quick likes, the occasional. Nice photo. Where is that? On a sunset shot behind the warehouse loading dock. People from work teased me. Shannon said, "You got a fan club, Mark." "It's one person with 0 hobbies," I said. "Same thing," she said, stapling a stack of manifests like she loved the sound. Life went on. I got promoted to shift lead, which meant more paperwork and the same paycheck for 3 months until accounting caught up. Allison was gone from my days, except tiny moments where my body remembered her body, her habit of leaning on the counter while she ate cereal, the way she double-knotted her sneakers out of old habit from high school track. I had no way to say any of it to her, so I didn't. That's the truth. I kept my head down, a tactic I recommend if your heart has a loud voice. Give it a job, and it quiets down. The Daydream account started writing real comments. Short, sweet, never too personal. "Your nephew's stance is better than mine," they wrote. I answered, he got his mother's patience and my inability to run. When I posted a picture from my cousin's wedding in Cincinnati, someone asked in the comments if I'd brought a +1. Daydream wrote, "He looks like a gentleman who danced slow and ate cake fast." I replied, "Who says I danced at all?" They wrote, "Your tie is loose. You danced." And that was that. Fun, right? It was the internet version of nodding to the same stranger on your morning walk for months. You never asked their name. The nod is enough. 2 years passed like oil changes. Christmases, soft pretzels at ball games, new windshield wipers I kept meaning to replace. Daydream kept being Daydream. I noticed how they avoided direct questions. When I asked, "Where are you watching from?" I got not far. When I said, "You cook?" they sent back a picture of sizzling onions that disappeared 24 hours later with the story timer. And I thought, okay, they like privacy. Plenty of people do. I respect that. I also like the idea that I had a tiny audience. And maybe that's the most American thing about me. Give me a bleacher and I'll play to it. I should say I dated a little. A couple dinners. A woman named Julia who collected old road maps and could talk for an hour about paper mills. Another named Aaron who taught middle school band and swore every problem could be solved with metronome discipline. No esparks, no disasters. I stayed friendly with their dogs and moved on. Meanwhile, Daydream was steady as a drumbeat. I got used to seeing the notifications. I'd post something and think, okay, they'll see this in 10 minutes. Maybe that sounds sad. It wasn't. It was just one of those weird online routines we all adopt. Same mug every morning, same little bubble of a friend every post. Year 3 is when Daydream started DMING more often. Nothing heavy. "Good luck on your inspection today," they wrote after I mentioned the state inspector was swinging by the warehouse. I said thanks. "He hates our forklift paths like they ran over his cat." "Bring donuts," they wrote. "People are nicer with sugar." Flawless logic, I said. We passed the inspection with minimal notes, and when I posted, "Victory tastes like burned coffee," they replied with a gif of a marching band. I laughed. Who sends marching bands anymore? I told my sister, Amy, about the account when she came over to borrow my stepladder. She said, "It's probably a guy from work messing with you." No. I said, "Guy from work energy is louder and includes jokes about my haircut. You think it's a woman." "I think it's someone with manners," I said. Amy smirked. "So not a guy from work? Got it." She stood on the ladder in my kitchen and replaced the bulb I kept forgetting about. "You know what I like most about you," she said. "Everything, top to bottom. Your ability to be boring and charming at the same time," she said. "If this daydream is a real person, they probably like that about you too. It's comforting." "Comfortable," I said, and she gave me a look like I'd corrected her grammar during a birthday toast. Year 4, I moved apartments. Not for romance, not for tragedy. My landlord sold the building to a guy who wanted to update the units, which we all know means switch to vinyl plank and charge double. I found a place on the edge of town near the fairgrounds with a sagging porch and a backyard big enough to throw a football and immediately feel winded. I bought a used grill and a plastic patio set. I got a neighbor named Trish who walked a tiny dog with the swagger of a much larger dog. "You knew?" she asked. First morning I was hauling boxes. "Depends how you define new," I said. "Human new?" "No." "Street new?" "Yes." She nodded. Her dog peed on the maple tree like it had been briefed on the plan. "If you need to borrow a rake, yell," she said. "I don't have one, but yelling is cathartic." We became porch friends, the kind where you wave and make weather observations. She worked nights dispatching for a towing company and knew every pothole within a 5-mile radius. She had a way of talking that made everything sound like it could be solved with the right socket wrench. I liked her. Daydream followed me to the new place, obviously. Still liking. Still commenting. When I posted a picture of the porch with its wobbly rail, they wrote, "Don't lean on that with coffee in hand. You'll lose both." I laughed and fixed the rail. And for the record, if you ever doubt whether encouragement works, let a stranger on the internet nag you about a safety rail. You'll get it done. Around this time, the messages shifted. Not more intimate, exactly. Just more observant. "I noticed you drive less on Sundays now," they wrote once. "Gas is up," I replied. "And I like naps." A week later, "You're wearing that brown jacket more. Did your Navy one retire?" I stared at the screen. Who notices jackets? Okay, yes, my Navy one got ruined helping a buddy move an aquarium. Long story. But the idea that someone could tell I'd shifted to brown by swiping through my stories, it felt cared about. Also, it felt like the sensation of someone standing behind you at the grocery store line and guessing your total within $1. Impressive odd, not illegal. "Old jacket drowned by fish tank," I wrote back. "Brown is interim management." They sent a laughing emoji and, "Brown looks like you mean business and have a good thermos." "My thermos game is elite," I replied. We kept sharing that weird, slow internet camaraderie. If I told you I had any idea who it was, I'd be lying. I thought maybe it was a friend of a friend who liked guessing games and boundaries. I thought maybe it was one of those burner accounts people use to follow their ex's new girlfriends, except in my case, there were no new girlfriends to lurk on. It was just me, my truck, my porch, my nephew, my burnt ribs, my better when reheated lasagna, my Sunday naps. By year 5, I had built an entire season around routine. Work, gym twice a week with Kyle because he got engaged and needed to fit into a slim suit, grocery store on Thursdays, laundry Saturday mornings. The morning of the moment, that bed of the truck moment, I'd gone to the farmer's market early and bought apples that tasted like autumn, decided to put on a flannel shirt. The radio was playing a pregame show. Trish yelled across the yard, "If the Browns blow it again, I'm switching to soccer." "I'll call the front office," I yell back. "They're terrified of you." She pointed at her tiny dog like it was a union rep. The message from Daydream came through while I was picking leaves out of the truck bed. "Do you ever wonder about alternate endings?" it said. I typed, "Like director's cut?" "Sure. Does the hero still need new wipers?" They said, "Maybe. Or maybe he moved to Columbus and started drinking tea." "People in Columbus don't drink tea," I wrote. "They drink whatever's on sale and pretend it's tradition." A pause. Then, "You're still allergic to tea." I forgot. Something about that line tripped a wire in my brain because allergic is a strong word for I don't like it, which is my situation. Only one person I dated ever insisted it was practically a medical condition. She said, "You have a whole body reaction to tea," when I winced after a sip of her mint concoction. She called it an allergy, like men call their disinterest in salad a dietary requirement. It was Allison, and that phrase, allergic to tea, rang like a bell I hadn't heard since I stood in her kitchen while she brewed something with leaves that looked like rabbit food. I stared at my phone. The truck bed was suddenly a stage, and I was the guy who just realized the audience was wearing familiar shoes. I wrote, "I am not allergic to tea. I just don't like hot leaf water." They replied, "You used to say it's like drinking a candle." I did say that. Once. Exactly once. 7 years ago, standing in a kitchen with white cabinets that chipped if you looked at them too hard. I leaned against the tailgate. The radio told me about wind speeds at kickoff. My heart did its "hey, remember me?" percussion, and I ignored it by counting lug nuts. I typed, "Where'd you hear that?" They took their time. "I remember things I shouldn't probably," they wrote. I'm good at retaining trivia. I tried to picture any person in my life who could have known me then and stuck around quietly like this. The list was short and mostly people you wouldn't trust with secret phrases about tea. The longer I looked, the more the edges glow. Word from the last 5 years floated up. Brown jacket looks like you have a good thermos. You drive less on Sundays. Don't lean on that rail with coffee. You danced. Your tie was loose. I scrolled back through old messages because now my brain gave me permission to examine them as evidence. A pattern poked through. Daydream never asked me about new women. They always used the word "we" in a way that slipped in sideways. "We overestimate how much strangers care," they'd written once. "We all repeat routes on habit." It was subtle, but there. If you know how someone types, the speed, the spacing, the cadence, you can hear in your head. And there was that quick, tidy way Allison wrote texts, like she was cleaning as she went. I heard myself say out loud to nobody, "No way." My phone buzzed again. "I'm sorry," the message said. That sounded intrusive. "Itipa, no. You're fine." Then I typed and erased a half dozen different things like "How's your mom?" and "Do you still run in the rain?" and "Why do you block me everywhere?" and then move into the shadows like a raccoon with a PhD. I erased them because I didn't want to be the guy who threw 5 years worth of quiet into a blender. Instead, I wrote, "Hey, I'm going live for a bit to fix a squeak. Need the moral support of a marching band." I propped my phone on the toolbox and went live. Comments started rolling in. My cousin complaining about mulching, Kyle sending his usual get a real hobby heckle, and Daydream with a waving emoji. I sprayed silicone into the latch like the world was normal. Then people started asking about the game, and I answered with my standard spin. "We'll crush it until the fourth quarter, then reinvent heartbreak," which is how the Browns train you to manage expectations. We joked. I signed off, and I sat there, legs dangling off the tailgate, phone in my hand like it weighed more than the truck. I messaged, "Where'd you grow up, Daydream?" They responded, "Ohio." Specific, I wrote. "Is that not specific enough?" They wrote. "It's a big rectangle," I said. "Hard to play Guess Who with that." "Okay," they wrote. "West side of Dayton, near the park with the lights people drive through in December." I knew that park. We'd sat there once counting minivans. She'd said, "Every family a story." I felt the tailgate under me turn into the kitchen counter again, January iced coffee, all of it. "Do you like tacos?" I asked, dumb on purpose. "What kind of question is that?" "A sorting hat one," I wrote. "Hard shell, soft shell, or give me the nachos and nobody gets hurt." "Soft shell," they wrote, "but heated, not cold, and lots of lime." Allison, the way she said heated, like it was a moral stance. My head filled with a dozen micro-memories. Her rolling her eyes at me for keeping the tortilla bag open, her stealing the lime wedge and saying, "You don't appreciate citrus." I didn't respond yet. I walked into the house, washed my hands, poured a glass of water I didn't want, and stared at the refrigerator door because it was a safe, neutral object. My neighbor yelled, "They messed up the field position again." And I yelled back, "Learn to punt." You'd have thought I was fully invested in football strategy. I was just buying myself a minute. If this is where you expect fireworks, I'm sorry. This story is a slow burn that never pretends to be a meteor. I sat with it. I let the click happen inside me. She blocked me and then watched me. Not because she wanted to ruin my life, not because she had a master plan, but because we do ridiculous things to take the edge off the choices we commit to. She said she needed it easier. Maybe this is what easier looked like for her. For me, it looked like a rubber band ball of 5 years' worth of small attention. She sent another message. Hey, sorry, that was weird. I typed, do you want me to say something, or do you want the comfort of not being called on it? She answered, I want to know if you're mad. I stared at that one for a while. I thought about the part of me that wanted to say, of course, because that part is loud and loves a speech. Then I thought about what actually happened in the 5 years. I worked, I ate, I slept, I helped my sister move. I learned to make a stew that doesn't taste like glue. I watched my nephew switch from T-ball to 10-year-old overhand fastballs. I fixed a rail, I bought a rake and returned it to Trish 4 times because she kept leaving it in the alley. In the middle of it, a silent cheerleader clicked hearts. Itipid. She wrote, Really? Really? I said, but I don't think I can do a big conversation. Because it's me, she said. No, I wrote. Because it's us in the past. And because sometimes the most honest thing two people can be is essential to each other's history and irrelevant to each other's future. I don't know what to say to that, she wrote. You don't have to say anything, I wrote back. We're good at not saying things. We're experts. She sent a small ha. I took a breath that felt like it landed in the right part of my lungs for the first time that day. Then I typed, I figured out who you are. I watched the typing dots appear and disappear like they were stuttering. She didn't reply right away. I could feel my neighbor's TV through the wall, hear his dog collar jingle, smell someone grilling 2 houses down. Life kept moving. It always does, which is annoying when you wanted to pause for dramatic effect. Finally, she said, I thought you might. I won't block you, I wrote. But this is my last message to you. That's not the outcome movies sell. Movies promise declarations, or explosions, or at least somebody running through the rain with a speech. I gave her exactly what I had to give: acknowledgement, a boundary, and a sentence I could live with. Then I put my phone face down and took the trash out because that's what was next on my list. You probably want the conversation we didn't have. You want me to demand reasons. You want her to deliver a monologue with bullet points. But the truth is tidy in a quiet way. She closed the door once and then watched through the peephole until she convinced herself I was okay, or until she was okay. I don't know which. Maybe both. I left the door where it was. After I took out the trash, Cal called. You watching the game? He asked. Half watching, I said. Browns are inventing new ways to confuse me, he said. Write them a letter, I said. Include pictures. You sound like you just got off a heavy phone call. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. You ever have a small epiphany? Like a tiny, polite one? I had a large, rude one when I realized I can't fit in my tux yet, he said. Does that count? Close enough, I said. What happened? I figured out who likes my porch pictures, I said. He paused. The ghost of your landlord? Close, I said. Listen, not to be vague, but I think I'm going to buy new wiper blades tomorrow. Ah, he said. That level of life change. Exactly, I said. If you need me tonight, I'll be doing nothing complicated. He let go because he's good at friendship. There are friends who ask the follow-up question because they're nosy, and friends who ask because they care. Kyle's the third type who sees you guarding something and puts his hands in his pockets. Sunday turned into Monday. I went to work. Shannon asked, so, mystery fans still alive? And I said, everybody's alive until they're not, which was not the coffee chat she wanted, but she let it sit. I signed off on an inventory count and told the guys to reorganize the pallet racks because they looked like a yard sale. At lunch, I ate what was technically soup and scrolled through my DMs. The Daydream account had sent one message at 11:34 p.m. I hear you. Be well. That was it. No pedigraph. No divid. Just 4 words that landed with a neat little click. I didn't write back. We were done speaking, but I didn't block them. You can call that inconsistent. I call it humane. There's a difference between slamming a door and letting a hallway be a hallway. That week felt like one long exhale. I slept better. I fixed the stupid loose hinge on my bathroom cabinet that had been clicking every time I reached for toothpaste. I went over to Amy's house and tried to help my nephew with math he refused to admit was hard. He said, Uncle Mark, why do letters suddenly matter in numbers? I said, because math got bored and wanted to feel creative. He said that's dumb, and I nodded because it is. On Wednesday, I was loading a box truck behind the warehouse when Trisha's tow truck rolled by on her lunch break. She honked and yelled, "Tell the Browns to sign someone who understands clocks." "I will personally do the interview," I yelled back. She pulled over, jumped out, and handed me a container. "Apple crumble. My aunt made too much." "This looks like exactly the right amount," I said. "You look like a man who keeps promises to himself," she said, vague in the way people get when they sense something shifted. "I'm trying," I said. A few days later, Daydream liked a picture of the crumble with vanilla ice cream melting in a slow spiral. They left a comment. "Looks perfect." I tapped the heart. That was our new language. Not silence, but a reduced vocabulary. If you think that's sad, you haven't learned how to retire certain words gracefully. People always want to talk closure to death. Sometimes closure is a nod across a backyard. Sometimes it's taking out the trash. One afternoon at the end of the month, my boss asked if I wanted more responsibility. I surprised both of us by saying yes. I'd spent years telling myself I preferred the familiar. Turns out I just prefer the honest. He gave me the schedule, and I took it home and circled the evenings where I could still get to my nephew's games and mow my lawn in a way that wouldn't make the neighborhood Facebook group explode. Saturday, I washed the truck again because it's a ritual I can afford. My neighbor was grilling. The earth kept turning. The same empty cart will lived in my truck bed because I hadn't figured out what to do with it, and I decided maybe I never would. Not everything needs a resolution. Some things are just a punchline to a joke you tell yourself when you're cleaning up. Trish wandered over, dog trotting behind like it owned the place. She squinted at me. "You look taller," she said. "I adjusted my expectations," I said. "Does that require special shoes?" "Steel-toed, apparently," I said. We sat on the porch steps. She told me about a call where a guy insisted his car had been stolen, but it turned out he'd parked it on the street over. I told her about a pallet that split in two like a magic trick and how the parts rolled away in 8 perfect directions. We laughed. The dog sneezed. A couple kids biked by arguing about which superhero would be better at algebra. My phone buzzed. I didn't reach for it. I took the bite of apple crumble she'd brought again. This time with cinnamon, she said she'd toasted herself. You ever realize you're exactly where you're supposed to be without an announcement? That. And before you think I'm about to turn into a motivational poster, hear me, most of my moments are not like that. Most of them are me standing in the aisle of a store comparing light bulbs and muttering, "What is lumens again?" But occasionally you get a clean line. Later, I check my phone. Daydream was still around, leaving their small footprints. I think they'll be there next month and the month after until something in their life shifts and the internet gets quieter the way snow does. I won't be the one to push the off switch. I said my piece. She knows I know. That's the whole point, right? She was seen for seeing me. The loop closed. You want the details I left out? Fine. The day after she first blocked me, I sat in my truck in the grocery store parking lot and wrote a draft of a message to nobody that said, "I get it." I didn't send it because there was nowhere to send it. I bought paper towels and a rotisserie chicken and decided not to make the aisle dramatic. I went home and ate chicken on the porch and watched my street like it was a parade. That became the way I did everything. Simply with a little humor, without speeches to empty rooms. Months later, after the last message to Daydream, I found myself at that coffee shop again because life loves loops. I ordered hot coffee because I'm civilized in winter. The barista asked, "You want room?" I said, "No, I'm not adding anything to this." A woman behind me laughed. We made small talk about the weather that's never small because you live in it. I walked out with the cup, and it tasted like what mornings taste like when you stop trying to make them be something else. There's a temptation to tell you what I learned, but lessons wrap stories too tight. I'll give you something better, a handful of lines I use now without even realizing it. At work, when a guy panics because a shipment is misrouted, I say, "We'll fix in steps." Panic wastes the steps. When my sister rants about a soccer coach who thinks he invented patience, I say, "Annoyance is a hobby some people choose." When someone asks if I'm on the apps, I say, "I'm on my porch." When my neighbor's tiny dog barks at a thunderclap, I say same. The rest, I don't summarize. You were here. You heard the beats. A person blocked me and stayed anyway. Not up front, not by my side, but out there in the bleachers, clicking a heart with a fake name while I lived a very normal life. I don't recommend it. I don't warn against it. I just tell you. Because sometimes the weird thing about a story is that it's so normal it slides right past you until one sentence lands and your brain says, oh. So that's what happened. She watched for 5 years. I figured it out. I told her I knew. I told her I wouldn't block her and that my message was my last. If you're looking for an after-credits scene, here it is. Later that night, the Browns actually didn't blow it. My neighbor cheered through the wall. I texted Kyle a photo of my new wiper blade still in the package to prove I had goals. Proud of you, he wrote. Then he sent a gif of a marching band for no reason at all. I laughed, alone in my kitchen with the cabinet hinge that finally shut right. I turned off the light and it stayed off, like a small promise kept. And in the dark, I remembered the best and most boring truth. Most goodbyes don't sound like doors slamming. They sound like nothing. They look like you, standing on your porch, watching your street turn the color it always turns at dusk, holding a cup of coffee and thinking about wiper blades, and being fine.